Today, we're going to dive into a treatise that does something pretty bold. It takes one of the most central words in Islam, Salat, and asks a really simple question. What if we've been translating it wrong? Instead of relying on later interpretations, it goes all the way back to the oldest Arabic dictionaries to find out what Salat really meant at its core. And, well, the answer it comes up with might just change how you see everything.
So the whole thing kicks off with this fascinating puzzle. You have one single word in the Qur'an, Salat, that's used for an action that God does, that angels do, that we humans do, and that even birds do. I mean, think about that for a second. What one single idea could possibly connect all of them? It's a real head-scratcher.
And this isn't just speculation, right? It's right there in the text. You've got God and his angels performing Salat. You have this beautiful image of every bird knowing its own Salat. And then, of course, you have the command for humans to establish the Salat. Now, if Salat means ritual prayer, it kind of works for humans. But how does God perform a ritual prayer? Or a bird? It doesn't quite fit.
So, how do we solve this? Well, the source material we're exploring suggests we need to do some linguistic archaeology. It argues that to find a meaning that works for everyone, God, angels, humans, birds, we have to peel back all the layers of interpretation that have built up over the centuries and get right down to the word's original DNA, its three-letter Arabic root.
Okay, now this is where it gets really cool. The treatise points to a massive linguistic clue. The root letters for Salat, Sad, Lam, Waw, are what you call a permutation of another root, Wal, Sad, Lam. It's like the letters just swap places. And this second root, Wal, Sad, Lam, is a word that everyone agrees on. It means to connect, to join, to have communion. This is a known thing in linguistics, and it suggests a deep original link between the idea of Salat and the idea of connection.
And that leads us to the central finding of the whole treatise. Based on this linguistic trail, it argues that the fundamental meaning of Salat isn't ritual prayer at all. It's simply relationship, connection, the act or even the state of being in communion. And if that's true, well, that changes just about everything.
All right, so let's run with this idea. If we swap out prayer and plug in relationship, does it work? Does this new key actually unlock other doors? What does it tell us about all those other concepts that are always mentioned right alongside Salat?
Suddenly, a whole new framework just clicks into place. The treatise argues that zakat isn't just charity, but lexically means purity of heart, the inner state you need for a real relationship. Ruku, the bowing, means acknowledging a truth. Sujud, the prostration, means submitting out of respect. And Salat? That's the sustained relationship that's built on top of all of that.
And look at how neatly this all flows together. It's not just a random list of terms, it's a psychological and behavioral sequence. According to this reading, you start with a pure heart. This clarity allows you to acknowledge a higher reality. Your natural response to that is respect and submission, and the outcome of that whole process is a sustained, continuous relationship, the Salat.
Okay, but wait a second. I know what you're probably thinking right now. If Salat is supposed to be this continuous 24/7 relationship, then why does the Qur'an talk so much about specific appointed times to perform it? That seems like a contradiction, right?
Well, the treatise has a fascinating answer, and it points right back to the Qur'an itself. It highlights this verse, which describes believers as being da'imun in their salat. And that word da'imun is key. It means continuous, lasting, permanent, uninterrupted. The source argues this is a smoking gun, direct textual evidence that salah is in fact meant to be an unbroken state of being.
So here's the distinction it makes. The relationship itself is meant to be a constant background awareness. Think of it like music playing softly in the background of your life. The appointed times aren't when you turn the music on and off. They're the moments you deliberately stop what you're doing, turn up the volume, and really truly listen. They're moments to bring that ever-present connection into the foreground.
And this is where the argument takes a really unique turn. The source proposes that these times for focus aren't about what's on your watch. They're not arbitrary points on a 24-hour clock. No, it argues they're tied to something much deeper, much more organic, the natural biological rhythm of our own consciousness.
The theological foundation for this comes from verses like this one. It paints this incredible picture where consciousness isn't something we just have. It's something that is taken from us when we sleep and released back to us when we wake up. It frames our conscious awareness not as a given, but as a daily gift, a loan, that makes the entire relationship possible in the first place.
So, with that in mind, the appointed times become these deeply profound markers. The morning isn't just time for the morning prayer. It's the moment you receive the gift of consciousness back. The evening, at sunset, is this natural pause, a moment of awe perfect for reflection. And the night, as you're about to sleep, is the moment you acknowledge that this gift is about to be suspended, with no absolute guarantee it will return. They mark the very thresholds of our conscious existence.
Okay, so stay with me here, because if you follow this chain of logic, from Salat as relationship to the times being about consciousness, it leads to the most provocative, the most challenging reinterpretation of all. And it has to do with one of the most famous phrases in the entire Qur'an.
First, we have to redefine another word, masjid. Now, we almost always translate this as a place of prostration, a mosque. But the source argues that grammatically it can also be a verbal noun. That means it's not the place where an action happens, but the action itself. So masjid can mean the act of respecting.
So what happens when you combine the act of respecting with the term al-haram, which consistently means forbidden or prohibited? You get a phrase that translates not to the sacred mosque, but to the forbidden act of respecting. I mean, just let that sink in. The forbidden act of respecting.
That, of course, sounds like a complete contradiction. It raises this immediate burning question. What on earth could a forbidden act of respecting possibly be? How can an act of showing respect to God be forbidden?
The treatise says the answer is spelled out right here in verse 214. In its lexical reading, the verse is a command to turn away from shatr, a word that means giving something a direction, pointing to a location. And it explicitly calls this the forbidden act of respecting. Then it says it again, just to be crystal clear. Wherever you are, turn your attention away from directing.
So here's the final stunning conclusion of this entire line of reasoning. The treatise argues that the forbidden act of respect is the act of physicalizing or localizing God. It's the act of directing your relationship, your respect, your worship towards any single physical spot on the map, any building, any direction, as if God is over there, instead of being omnipresent with you wherever you are.
So, let's just pull all those threads together one last time. This journey starts with the argument that Salat's true root meaning is relationship. It suggests this relationship is meant to be a continuous state of conscious awareness. The appointed times aren't interruptions, but reminders that mark the profound thresholds of our consciousness. And it all culminates in this radical conclusion that trying to locate God in a specific direction is what the Qur'an calls the forbidden act of respect.
And that leaves us with this huge final question to think about. What changes in our understanding, in our very approach to faith, when its central practice is seen not as a ritual that you do a few times a day, but as a continuous relationship that you are in every single moment you're conscious? What does that change for you?